So the Chicago Bears, they just quietly made a sneaky good move. And I want to talk about something that's not being covered much. I get it. We really have to concentrate in the trenches in this draft, but I want to talk about running backs. And to be more specific, two stud running backs in this draft. I think we're going to see one of them wearing a Bears uniform when this is all said and done. And let's frame it from within a head coach interview with Eddie George. It's one that previously looked like a throwaway meeting, one to, satisfy the Rooney rule. But George, he absolutely dismisses the thought that this interview was a sham. I'm going to talk more about that. But it turns out that from the Bears' perspective, it wasn't what it seemed. The Bears were actually gathering intel on not one, but two Ohio State running backs. I'm talking about Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson. And now George himself, he might have just leaked the Bears 2025 NFL draft strategy. But this also checked multiple boxes here. I've got absolutely no doubt that the Bears are going to draft a running back this year, but an ulterior motive for the Bears, and yes, a benefit was also that it quickly cleared the way to hire Ben Johnson the next day. I get how that looked. But Eddie George, he was on the Stripe Sports podcast, and he confirmed one of the main reasons the Bears came calling. He totally revealed the dominant part of his conversation with the Bears was about their interest in Ohio State running back Quinshon Judkins. And this is to hear straight from Eddie. I can say that when I interviewed with the Bears for their coaching position up there, his name was definitely on that board. I'm a big fan of Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson, and I think they both have matured into quality backs. Quinshon Judkins, he's a grown man. TreVeyon Henderson, on the edges in terms of the passing game, being a receiver out of the backfield, it's amazing. TreVeyon showed not only that he can have breakaway speed in the game, but he can hit it between the tackles. So I'm not sure about the stats of DeAndre Swift, like his status. That's all a guess right now. But does Henderson kind of sound a little bit like Jahmyr Gibbs? What do you think? And now we can talk about a smaller school back like Genty. I mean, coming off an absolutely legendary year. But how about these two backs who did it against the toughest competition in college ball for a lower draft investment? Let's look at this. I think it's best served by looking at who Henderson is first. And it's definitely a conversation which Ohio State guy is a better back here, which one's a better fit. But this is just an absolutely eye-opening breakdown here. We're looking at Henderson being a player that's had more national championships, won, than lost fumbles. I mean, what matters most about his performance? We're talking about his early production. He had over 1,500 yards as a freshman. His ball security is second to none. No lost fumbles on 667 touches. That's crazy. What's really eye-popping here is his efficiency. We're looking at 7.1 yards per attempt in 2024. And he was over 1,000 plus rushing yards while recording only 12 rushing attempts or less in every game this year. Just wildly impressive. Like, let's talk about that again. He recorded only 12 rushing attempts or less in every single game this year, but he still eclipsed 1,000 yards. We're looking at the only running back in the 2025 class to hit these marks. 1,000 plus rushing yards, 200 plus receiving yards, over 7 yards per carry. Kind of looking at his profile in a little more detail, we're looking at a guy who's 22 years old, totally was not worn down during his time with the Buckeyes. Good size, 5'10", 208 pounds. This guy has legitimate NFL speed. He's slated as one of the best pass pro backs in the whole draft, and now he's had some injury issues. I'm gonna be honest about that. But his durability was absolutely great last year. He played in all 16 games. I think this guy's a one of one. We're talking about elite speed, 4.4 speed, supreme inside quickness. He can absolutely run over cornerbacks if that's what you need. He was just one of those guys last year. When you watch him get the ball, you lean forward. You watch, because this guy was always a threat to take a screen or a handoff totally down the field for the distance. Now, granted, George is the head coach at Tennessee State, but if you've forgotten, This guy won a Heisman at Ohio State, still very much enmeshed within the Ohio State football program. This guy's uniquely suited to give intel on who he is as a back. And also, George was an absolute beast in the NFL. If you're my age, you remember watching him play. When this guy talks, we should definitely listen. Now you're looking at the Bears for draft capital. We have 2 seconds and a third. These are players slated to go on day 2 in the draft. Even though Genty's saying publicly he wants to play in Chicago, I like hearing that. Either of these other backs could be a great pick in even the 3rd round. Now we're looking at the fact that although George, he performed very well in the interview, it was actually of great benefit to get his name out there from his perspective. As a serious head coach candidate, the Bears may have showed their hand at running back in this interview with George, though. So let's move to the next player. Let's talk about who Judkins is. Eddie George, he is talking that he thinks he's an absolute stud. And I think it seems unlikely that the Bears are going to draft Genty in the 1st round of the 2025 NFL draft. I don't think we're going to use that kind of draft capital with our needs and attention in the trenches, but totally could see us using one of our day 2 picks at running back. It's likely on the table. So let's talk about Judkins. He totaled 1,060 rushing yards and 14 rushing touchdowns with the Ohio State Buckeyes last year. He projects to be a top 50 pick in the upcoming draft. But the guy came to Ohio State last year after 2 seasons at Ole Miss. So in Oxford, the guy was a first-team All-SEC back in 2023. He set the Ole Miss school record with 1,567 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns in 2022. I mean, coming off 3 productive seasons, you're looking at Judkins showcasing his versatility during his time in college ball. Finished his 3-year career at OSU and Ole Miss with 4,227 yards from scrimmage and 50 total touchdowns. I mean, the guy's also a threat out of the backfield in the pass game. He has 59 catches in his career for 442 yards and 5 touchdowns in that area. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about a back who, as a freshman at Ole Miss, over 1,500 rushing yards, and then for Ohio State, only 196 carries, but he churned out 1,060 plus yards. And his draft comparison is comps. He's being comped to guys like Kareem Hunt and Joe Mixon. I mean, we're talking about a balanced runner, big, thick, strong framed rusher, and his game is absolutely complete. He can catch passes with the best of them. And I think what's nice about both of these backs, they didn't have all the tread run off the tires in the college game. These guys have plenty of juice and they're ready to go. If you look at it from Chicago's perspective, we're in a situation where, I mean, DeAndre Swift, right? He's our lead back. I think there's zero word on whether he's going anywhere. A lot of people are speculating. Yes, we can recognize that Swift, though, he was traded out of Detroit during Ben Johnson's tenure there. So there is some history there. But if we're looking at a dual complementary back set, like a set like he ran in Detroit, Judkins absolutely looks like the perfect fit to play the Montgomery role, opposite Swift being the home run threat, right? But if we go a different direction, Henderson absolutely is a home run hitter. He's way more electric than Swift ever was. Sorry, man, I can't talk. So we're looking at both backs in question here. And if Eddie George gives a glowing assessment, that holds weight for sure. And no, I'm not going to make a Sonic reference. So let's just keep going. So, and as we've got the combine coming up. Both of these backs might absolutely rocket up draft boards after they work out. But I really think that day 2, the 2nd or 3rd round, I think that's the sweet spot. I think that's when the Bears are going to address their running back spot. Now, I want to be fair too. I don't want to say this interview is a sham because I don't really believe that. This was a greatly beneficial interview for Eddie George. He recently had the chance to interview, even though he didn't get the job, the current head football coach at Tennessee State. He spoke glowingly about the experience. And let's just hear straight from Eddie. The thing about the Rooney Rule is it doesn't matter how you get in the room, whether it's through the front door, back door, side door, window, if it's from the roof. If I get in the room you still got to deal with me. Then I got to go out there and perform, meaning I've still got to interview well. And interview well he did. And it wasn't the Heisman Trophy winner and former NFL All-Pro's first interaction with the Chicago Bears and either. He previously interned with the franchise as part of the Bill Walsh Diversity Coaching Fellowship. That gave him a chance to spend time with the franchise's coaching staff. There were already some relationships there. And here's straight from George. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to interview for the head coaching position had I not had a previous relationship and the respect from that. They were really pushing for me to come up, even when I said, hey, give me 48 hours to think about it. I thought they may say they didn't have that much time, but they didn't. But we had to get him in quickly too. I think it was a beneficial interview. We did want to get some inside intel on these two backs. I think the Bears are serious about these two running backs, and also great benefit to Eddie George. And the guy remains committed to elevating the Tigers football program. He's fully enmeshed at Tennessee State. He just led them to their share of the first Big South OVC title since 1999 for the school, and also the FCS playoffs for the first time since 2013. I think you'll keep watch on Eddie George. I think you're going to see him rise up the NFL coaching ranks. He's really showing out in college. And you guys tell me what you think. I mean, we're talking Genty in the first round. I would really much rather see one of these two backs come to the Chicago Bears on day 2. So we'll talk soon. Bear down. And I will always be here with Bears news on the daily. See ya.